Morning, Sharon.
Eleonora, how are you?
Okay, how are you?
Okay, thanks.
Good morning, Sharon.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Chief, what's up? I'm doing it right now. I'm doing it right now. It's right on the front page is the number and the meeting ID.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dale.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you too.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Nan Baker calling in.
Morning,
Good
Nan.
morning,
Good
Ann.
morning, Nan.
Good morning.
This is Jim Boyle. I'm filling in for Trevor today. Good morning.
Good morning, Jim.
I told Sharon I've got lots of comments and no votes ahead of me. I'm kidding. Please note the sarcasm for the record.
Do we have Nicole English yet?
This is Tom. I don't know if she's going to be calling in, but I believe Matt will be taking that first item if that's the one you're asking about, Sharon.
No, I'm looking for Nicole as a voting member. Or Melanie.
Let me go find him. I'll be back. Melanie's calling in right now.
Thank you. Okay, Mike, it looks like we have everybody. Whenever you're ready to begin.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Monday, May 24th. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Good morning. Calling the roll for the Monday, May 24th Board of Control meeting. It is 11:01. Dale Miller,
Here.
Nan Baker,
Here.
Jim Boyle serving as an alternate for Purnell Jones,
Here,
Mike Chambers serving as an alternate for Ermin Budish,
Here.
Lee Tucker serving as an alternate for the fiscal officer. Here. Melanie Say serving as an alternate for Mike Dever.
Here.
Lenora Lockett.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes from May 17th. Do I have a second, please?
Second, Miller.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Next on our agenda is public comment. If anyone from the public wishes to speak, you may do so now. Okay, there is no public comment. Moving on to contracts and awards, please.
First item, BC 2021-240, Department of Public Works, submitting an amendment to a contract with Hill International Incorporated for construction management, support, inspection, and material testing services for facilities for the period June 9th, 2020 through June 8th, 2023, for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $475,000.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Board of Control members. This is Matt Reimer representing the Department of Public Works. This item with Hill International, this amendment request is to increase the amount of the contract to be able to cover the anticipated finish of the CARES Act Building Modifications Program and also in progress General Fund Capital Improvement Plan project support. Appropriately, the item is split funded for 55% CARES Act proposed and 45% general fund. There was an advanced question about possible application of the new program, the American Rescue Plan funding to this. My answer to that was potentially it could be available for this contract should we manage any projects in construction that are funded by American Rescue Plan. None have been identified or in process as of yet. So that was my
Thank you, Matt.
answer to that. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board on this item?
Yes, I'll defer.
Okay,
Councilwoman Baker?
thank you. I'm sorry. It may be the same question. I was just curious if we've gotten the specifics on the ARP ability and how we can spend. I heard it was much broader, and that for that reason, I was hoping that this would be something that would be covered. But have you looked into that? Do we know that for sure that these funds cannot cover this cost?
I'll take that, Matt. I know myself, Director Prafialowicz, and the executive and everybody, we're still actively looking for everything. The guidance came out, it's a lot narrower, and we are still working with our consultants and our lobbyists to kind of understand exactly the terms of this. So as of right now, as Matt indicated, there are no construction projects planned. It doesn't mean that there will or won't be. We're still trying to get more guidance before we do that. The good news is, unlike the previous money, we have time. You know, last year we were kind of in a very time constraint, operation. So we have a little more time now to make sure we get this right. And I know Walter and I will be coming before you guys, before council in one of the committee meetings, once we have a better understanding, which I'm not sure exactly when we'll have that, but I know we're actively looking.
Okay, thank you for that, Mike. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. Councilman Miller, you had a question, sir?
So first to follow up on Councilwoman Baker's line, I would share that I had planned for there to be a briefing on the new rescue plan guidance at this Thursday's finance and budget meeting, but I have agreed to the director's request that it be delayed because there's still a lot of unanswered questions, although I am intending that at the next meeting following this Thursday's meeting that I'm going to ask that the director come and present as much as we've got at that time so we get some idea of what the parameters are regarding this money. And the question I have is whether the allocation of funding between the CARES Act and the general fund relates to the matter of timing as to how much of this money we expect to spend within the time parameter that applies to the CARES Act.
To Councilman Miller, this is Matt Reimer. Yes, sir, I think I understand your question. Specifically, we will be completing the remaining CARES Act Building Modifications Program projects within the time allocated within the CARES Act. Specifically, we anticipate being done by the end of July. And this amendment will help support the construction management of the 8 of 65 projects that are still in progress, and then the associated entire program's closeout and documentation for the 17.5 million that we've constructed out of the CARES Act program. That 55% allocation will be completed within the time frame of the CARES Act. Specifically, we anticipate it going through July 30th of this year.
So this particular contract supports those projects, plus it supports other projects that are not related to the CARES Act building retrofits. Is that correct?
That is correct, Councilman. It was intended to be support for our capital construction program. Coincidentally, the contract was brought at the beginning of the pandemic, and we had to, my words, hijack its use for the CARES Act building modifications program. This amendment will not only allow us to complete that program, but allow us to use the contract as originally intended to support our capital improvement plan for general fund capital projects.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any final questions on this item?
Yeah, Mike, if I could just real brief. Matt, Jim Boyle. Hey, Matt, you've been providing at the outset like weekly and then bi-weekly updates on the use of the CARES funding. Now that we're kind of getting closer to the back end, is it possible that you could get me an update of where you guys are right now?
Mr. Boyle, I will definitely. I believe my last report to you was in the middle of April. Things have been less active, but still proceeding with the 8 of the HVAC projects in motion. I will provide you with an updated report on that, but broad brush strokes for today, 8 of 65 of those projects are currently still to be finalized. Most of them are HVAC related projects. Okay. One of them is a barriers project in Virgil Brown to augment some additional staff areas that are returning to work. And then lastly, we're finishing up the final stages of the audiovisual and continuity of government upgrades here to the administrative headquarters building.
All right, thank you. And then on this particular one and I apologize, what is Hill International? Which project are they doing, or is it a global one or a global contract? I'm unfamiliar.
They are essentially supporting our construction management staff. So okay. They are a construction management firm. They are performing all of our construction management services on the CARES Act building modifications program, to include project management services, program management services, and field inspection. So they've been the ones out in the field during all this entire year of activity and taking inspection photos, engaging with the contractors, and really augmenting the county public works staff to be able to execute the large program.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, any final questions from the board? Hearing none, then I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second, Miller.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2021-241, Department of Development, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 6389, which will result in a payment to Economic Growth Foundation in the amount not to exceed $50,000 for operational support of the Business Growth Collaborative for the period May 24th, 2021 through December 31st, 2021, and recommending the payment in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Paul Hertig with the Department of Development. This item will provide operating support for the work that is done by the Business Growth Collaborative. This is a program of the Greater Cleveland Partnership headed by Brian Hall and Gina Chevry with additional staff. The collaborative provides technical assistance to small businesses, especially but not exclusively minority and women-owned businesses, to support their further growth and development. This will be the 4th year that Cuyahoga County has provided operating support. Our support has been at the level of $50,000 each year, starting in the year 2018. And the results from this have been quite favorable. We get reporting every quarter of the specific names of the businesses that are assisted, their minority ownership and so forth. And over the first 3 years, there were 274 small businesses assisted, of which 202 were minority owned. So the department recommends continuing this support, which provides assistance to small businesses in a very cost-efficient manner.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions from the board on this item?
Yes, I have two questions, and the first is what the total annual budget of the Business Growth Collaborative is, and the second question is whether there are other additional funding partners besides Cuyahoga County.
Councilman, I do not have them in front of me, but I do have on the line a staff member of the Business Growth Collaborative, Marco Gurjevic. With the councilman's permission, I would ask Marco to speak to those questions.
Okay, thank you, please.
Marco?
Good morning, everyone. In terms to the councilman's question about funding, GCP and both GCP and Jumpstart are the managing partners or managing organizations of the BGC or the Business Growth Collaborative. In terms of funding that we receive as GCP's role within it, we leverage these dollars to cover the expense of the program manager who oversees the BGC. But as in general terms, we receive dollars from both private sector and public sector and foundation dollars for our funding pool for the BGC, as well as loans that we create for the businesses throughout the year. So in general terms, we do leverage other partners and other organizations' dollars for the operations of the BGC.
Okay, well, thank you for that response. And I would just add that that assisting more than 200 minority-owned businesses has to be considered a strong contribution to our diversity and equity efforts, and we appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this item from the board?
Mia Baker.
Yes, please.
Just a comment that organizations like this that are already in the effort for many years now in supporting minority and women businesses, 240 that we're talking about today, should be part of the big picture when we start talking about what we need to do in more of this, that we can't not include what the Economic Growth Foundation is doing through the Business Growth Collaborative and their efforts. So when we start talking about what we need to do in addition to what we're already doing, especially with contracting and loans and grants and all of that, organizations like this should be included in the big picture so that we understand exactly what we're doing for those that are looking for dollars. Just a comment. Thank you.
Very good comment. Any final questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, then I will make a motion to approve this item. Do I have a second, please?
Second, Miller.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-242, Court of Common Pleas, Juvenile Court Division, recommending awards and enter into agreements with various municipalities in the total amount not to exceed $13,600 for the Community Diversion Program for the period May 24th, 2021 through December 31st, 2021, with the City of North Royalton in the amount not to exceed $4,200, and with the City of Cleveland Heights in the amount not to exceed $9,400.
Good morning, this is Sarah Baker with Juvenile Court. These are two of our community diversion programs with North Royalton and Cleveland Heights. We utilize these programs with each of the different municipalities to divert youth away from any official court involvement and kind of keep them close to home in their own communities. So this is just the first two of the many that we contract with. We normally have between about 45 and 50. So these are just the first two of all the groups that will be starting to come through now. So we ask for your approval for this item.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there any questions from the board?
Just briefly, Mike.
Sure, Mr. Boyle.
Thank you, Jim Boyle here. So what is the, first of all, it's a great program. I'm familiar with it, and thanks for juvenile court keeping this operational. But what are the dollar amounts based on? Is it based on prior usage, hourly rates? I'm just curious.
So the last couple of years, we kind of actually took a look at this, and last year was the first year we implemented it, and we're doing it again this year, where we're looking at, we have our total budget, and we're looking at how many kids that the city served maybe in the year prior, and we kind of do a little percentage to see where we are with that, and allocate more money to the cities that are actually getting the most amount of kids and that need the money.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any final questions on this item?
Yes, my question is whether the funding is sufficient to provide for the needs for all of the juveniles that it makes sense to provide diversion services to, or is there a gap in funding?
And it's my understanding that most of the cities do a lot of funding for the diversion program on their own, and what we do is kind of supplement that. I know some cities have expressed concern to the courts that maybe in their budget they don't have enough funding all the time. So that's something that's been discussed in the past, but it's kind of more of a collaborative effort where we kind of we're just giving them a little bit of funding while the majority of the cities bring in their own funding as well.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, final questions? Hearing none, then I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'll give it to seconded by Mr. Boyle. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-243, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services, requesting authority to submit a grant application to the Ohio Department of Public Safety, Office of Criminal Justice Services, in the amount of $22,718.96 for management of the fiscal year 2020 Stop Violence Against Women Act Administrative Grant Program for the period January 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2022. And submitting the grant award in connection with said grant application.
Good morning. This is Leslie White with the Department of Public Safety. This funding is the VAWA Administrative Grant, which pays a portion of 2 staff positions in public safety, the Senior Grants Coordinator and the Fiscal Specialist, to provide programmatic and fiscal management of subrecipients related to the VAWA Block Grant. The Block Grant funds local projects that strengthen effective law enforcement and prosecution strategies and services to combat crimes against women. For that grant, there are duties such as reviewing the subrecipients' monthly reporting, conducting monitoring visits, and preparing monthly reports and the yearly reports that are submitted to the state. So this funding supports the staff handling those duties.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board on this item? Okay, hearing none, I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second, Boyle.
Seconded by Mr. Boyle. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-244, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services, recommending an award on requisition 4084 and enter into a contract with Cleveland Rape Crisis Center in the amount not to exceed $55,000 for juvenile diversion services for at-risk minority youth for the Positive Youth Development Prevents Delinquency Program in connection with the fiscal year 2021 Title II Formula Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Grant Program for the period October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021.
This is Leslie White again with Public Safety. The purpose of the JJDP grant is to address the overrepresentation of minority youth in the juvenile justice system, and it's funded through the Ohio Department of Youth Services, targeting minorities or minority at-risk juveniles from age 10 to 17. The funding that the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center will receive from this grant will support 2 distinct gender-specific programs. The first is Girls Circle, which aims to foster self-esteem and help girls maintain an authentic connection with peers and adult women in their community, with the purpose of increasing self-efficacy and decreasing self-harming behavior, decreasing rates of alcohol use, and increasing attachment to school. Then the second program is the Council for Boys and Young Men, and it addresses risk factors and empowers young men to find belonging, build assets, and deconstruct harmful masculinity beliefs. And that will result in significant increases in boys' school engagement, positive impact in boys' masculine beliefs, and high rates of satisfaction among participants. And there'll be 300 kids who participate in these programs for about 12 hours. Each participant will have 12 hours.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. Are there questions from the board on this item?
Yes, this is Dale, and my question is, what beliefs about masculinity are you trying to discourage, and what beliefs are you trying to encourage?
I would have to dig into that one a little bit more and get back to you.
Okay, well, I would like to know, so please get back to me.
Definitely will do.
Are there any additional questions on this item?
Nan Baker,
Yes.
I'm just reading over the explanation for the reasons why it's 7 months late. And it seems that furlough and vacation time and insurance review, those seems to be the sticking points. Do you think that you've overcome those issues? 7 months is a long time to have a contract presented to us so late.
Yes, definitely. And with these grants, the grant period's already begun before we've received the notice of award and the award amount. And then as part of the county process, we have to, get the funding set up before we can even begin to do the contracts in the system. And then also at the time that these were entered, there were other steps in place that have now been eliminated from the process, as far as like we won't have to open a requisition for these or do the events. We can go just straight into contract management. So that will save some time as well. But as far as any other issues, yes, we do believe we've addressed those.
If I may follow, according to the contract, then we only have 4 months left. Have we been engaged in this program even though we haven't received those dollars?
Well, the service providers we haven't paid for any services, I guess is what I'm wanting to say. I'm assuming, I'm not sure if correctly though, that they probably have these programs up and running and can still invoice us for services provided within the grant period, so long as this gets approved.
Before the
Councilman
deadline?
Baker, this is Alex Pellin, Director of Public Safety. What Leslie said is also my understanding, that these are going on, and by the backdating of this contract, it allows them to invoice for services that have been provided. That's correct.
All right, along with Councilman Miller, as long as you're getting back to him, can you just confirm that this hasn't been put on hold and that they're waiting for this to be approved? And given we only have 4 months left of the contract?
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am. We can definitely do that.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any final questions on this item? Hearing none, then I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second, Boyle.
Seconded by Mr. Boyle. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2021-245, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services, recommending an award on requisition 4083 and enter into a contract with Golden Ciphers Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $55,000 for mentoring, life skills, and training services for the CISA Rites of Passage program in connection with fiscal year 2021 Title II Formula Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Grant Program for the period October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021.
So this is another contract related to the JJDP grant, and which is to address the overrepresentation of minority youth in the juvenile justice system. And Golden Ciphers will be providing the CISA Rites of Passage project, and that develops self-awareness and self-enlightenment and provides life skills, mentoring, and employment training. And it'll serve 40 youth for 9 hours per week in the Central, Fairfax, Huff, and Slavic Village neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you again, Leslie. Are there any questions from the board on this one? Okay, hearing no questions, I'm going to make a motion to approve. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Lee Tucker. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-246, Office of the Medical Examiner, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to Advantage Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $6,372 for various repairs on one Agilent mass spectrometer, and recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Hugh Shannon, Medical Examiner's Office. Some of you may have remembered a similar item a few weeks ago. This was the other mass spec that went down after the first one was repaired. So we were in the same position. As I explained in the last item, we are working on a maintenance agreement to make sure that we're covered going forward. But these happen basically back to back.
Thank you, Hugh. Are there questions from the board on this item?
Yeah, just real quick. Hugh, can you remind me, and I apologize, what is a mass spectrometer? I don't recall from the last time it was on. I remember
Let me look at my
but...
science book here. And so the mass specs, there are several different kinds. Gas chromatographs will analyze materials and essentially identify them. These are a little more sophisticated. The liquid chromatograph mass spectrometers are able to analyze at a molecular level and give us identifications of substances, either drugs that are seized at scenes or substances that are found in decedent's blood.
Okay.
Did that clarify it for you, Mr. Boyle?
Yeah, you know,
the best I can
reason
do.
I went to law school so that I wouldn't have to know what a mass spectrometer is, but somebody may ask.
Are there any additional questions from the board? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second, please?
Second, Boyle.
Seconded by Mr. Boyle. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next
Thank
item,
you.
please.
Next item, BC 2021-247, Prosecutor's Office, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 5758, which will result in an award recommendation to Celebrite Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $50,500 for the purchase of one Celebrite Premium Mobile Data Extraction License for use in investigation and prosecution of child exploitation offenders for the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force for the period April 27th, 2021 through April 27th, 2022, and recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
David Ferteri with the County Prosecutor's Office, Ohio Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. This is actually a renewal of a license that we purchased in 2020 during the pandemic to allow us to increase our extraction of legal data from mobile devices for investigations. There was a price increase due to the fact that we need to unlock more and more phones as we continue to investigate these crimes. So we were forced to purchase additional credits. It's 1 credit to be able to unlock Android devices. The program gives us unlimited credits for Apple iOS devices. And this is completely funded by 40% through a federal grant from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, 60% from funds given to us by the state of Ohio.
Okay, thank you, David. Are there questions from the board on this item? Hearing none, then I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Miss Say. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next
Thank you.
item.
Next item, BC 2021-248, Department of Health and Human Services, Office of the Director, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to various providers, each in the amount of $40,000 for a total amount not to exceed $280,000 for general operating support to provide expert trauma-informed services to victims of criminal violence for the period May 24th, 2021 through December 31st, 2021, with Domestic Violence and Child Advocacy Center, doing business as Journey Center for Safety and Healing, with Adoption Network Cleveland, with Cleveland Cuyahoga County Child Advocacy Center, doing business as Canopy Child Advocacy Center, with Child and Family Advocates of Cuyahoga, with City of East Cleveland Fiscal Agent for East Cleveland Domestic Violence Program, with Renee Jones Empowerment, and with Young Women's Christian Association of Cleveland, doing business as YWCA Greater Cleveland.
Good morning, Paul Porter, Health and Human Services, on behalf of the Director of Health and Human Services. These are 7 grants totaling $40,000 each, and these were included in the budgetary process last year to replace funding cuts due to lower allocations of Victims of Crime Act federal grants. What we've seen is that VOCA funding here locally has dramatically decreased as the amount of money federal prosecutors are collecting from criminals due to either diversion or deferred prosecution instances have occurred. In those instances, the VOCA funding are fees or penalties levied against the criminals. And when a defendant enters a diversion or deferred prosecution program, they often don't have to pay those fees. So as part of the county's budget process, funds were earmarked to make sure that these agencies receiving those funds were able to continue providing those services. This funding is 100% Cuyahoga County Health and Human Services levy dollars.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions from the board on this item?
I have one question.
Please.
Paul, is there a reason why we're beginning this program in May and not in January when the dollars were available?
Thanks, Councilwoman Baker. When we structured this grant agreement, we wrote it up that it would be disbursed upon approval. So that's why we use the May 24th, 2021 date. Because this isn't tied to a specific outcome necessarily, like some of our other contracts are, this is designated as, general operational support. That's why we put the date of approval, and it was just a matter of working through everything else that we have in our queue, some of which was more date sensitive than this. It's anticipated that, again, we'll be able to disperse these funds immediately, but the reason we use the May 24th date is we wanted to make sure it was effective upon approval, not that we were backdating this funding.
So if I may, if I'm understanding you correctly, were these services for these providers, were they ongoing since January, but the contract begins May? Is that what you're saying?
Well, these providers have been delivering services throughout the year, correct? And these funds are not tied to specific clients being served or specific programming on behalf of the county. They're designated as general operating support. So theoretically, providers could use it to pay salaries that were earlier in the year, I suppose. But since this is structured as a grant and not necessarily like a cost reimbursement, they're not invoicing us for a specific staff member's hours on a specific day. This funding's general operating support.
Just to follow, so would you be getting invoices dated in February and March and April now that this has been approved in May?
Not necessarily, because this is a grant, the vendors would submit kind of an invoice or a request for disbursement for the full amount of that grant is typically how these are paid out. So you wouldn't necessarily see invoices with specific dates on them, particularly prior to this approval date.
Okay, good. I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there additional questions from the board on this item? Okay, hearing none, I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second Nan Baker.
Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Okay, we're moving on to exemptions, item BC 2021-249, Office of Procurement and Diversity, submitting administrative list of procurement exemptions in accordance with County Code Section 501.12, Section D, effective May 24th, 2021. And the list of exemptions, as listed on page 55 of the agenda, is being amended at the request of County Council. We will be amending category for reimbursements, which is item number 6 from the bottom of the list on page 55. And it is being amended to read reimbursements under $5,000, including kennel fees, courthouse rentals, HPG parking, sanitary connections, vendors, and others as approved by the fiscal officer.
Okay, good morning, Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. We're requesting approval of an updated list that replace the existing list. The updated list includes existing approved exemptions from the list, from the original list, and also it includes new items. If considered and approved today, it will reaffirm the approval of the existing items, and the new items are atypical procurements or atypical transactions that do not effectively or efficiently follow the standard procurement category. So as such, we're looking for approval of the additional items on this administrative list and to have one final list for to be presented and posted so that all are aware of the items that are eligible for this list.
Thank you, Lenore. And I'd like to add to the board as well that some of the original list that we're working on is dated back to 2011 under what was known as our Contracts and Purchasing Board, which is no longer here. And then we had some that were in 2012, 2017 was the last one. So in working with departments and working with everything we've seen coming through, and obviously working with Trevor, believe that this is a good list. It's updated. It provides support for audits, and it helps expedite, as Lenore indicated, atypical purchases. And so be happy to answer any questions you have. Are there any questions from the board?
Yes, this is Dale, and I worked with Trevor over the past week on a slight amendment to one section that has to do with the reimbursements. Do we have access to that language in front of us?
It was read by Sharon briefly, but it's exactly, and I can reread it. Or Sharon, do you want to read it so you have it?
Sure, let me pull it back up. Okay. Reimbursements under $5,000, including kennel fees, courthouse rentals, HPG parking, sanitary connections, vendors, and others as approved by the fiscal officer.
Okay, that sounds good. I would just like to, when we move it, to include that language.
Yes, will do. Are there other questions from the board on this item? Okay, hearing none then, as requested, I'm going to make a motion to approve the item as amended and read by Sharon. Do I have a second, please?
Second, Miller.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Moving on.
Moving on to the consent agenda, items BC 2021-250 through 252.
Board members, please take a look at it, the items, and feel free to speak with any questions. Give you another moment or two.
Chair, I have just one question
Yes.
on the under 252-504. I know this was I asked whether this was a new or let's see, is this a new addition or is it a replacement? For $20,000 doesn't seem like a lot for a brand new vehicle. And why is it that we feel that it's needed?
Hello, this is Laura Sims from the Sheriff's Department. This vehicle is to be used for the High Intensity Drug Force Trafficking Task Force, and it's needed so that the deputy who's assigned to the task force can use the vehicle for the required mission operations. It is an undercover vehicle, so it's not being built out for a bunch of things, which is part of the reason why it's a little bit lower. And honestly, we've been having a hard time. We wanted to try and find, something that was like a minivan or something like that that would kind of blend in, and we'd had a hard time finding it and something like that. And this is the closest thing that we could come up to for that. And this is a new vehicle, but it will be paid in full by the task force, or at least reimbursed. We had requested appropriations in the amount of the vehicle, and that has been approved. And then once purchased, the vehicle will be reimbursed by task force funds.
All right, it seems like, did you say you tried to get an SUV and instead had to?
No. We tried to get a minivan.
Minivan, okay.
I mean, because, minivan looks like a soccer mom. It kind of blends in. And so the one that we got is it's a Dodge Journey, which is sort of similar to that. But again, because it's going to be used for undercover work, that's something that we need to make sure it's innocuous.
Right. And a minivan was difficult to find?
Yeah. Especially, because of everything that's happened with COVID, manufacturing on vehicles kind of slowed down because they had to reduce staff for that. And then, people who are needing to purchase them, there's just not a lot out of there. It was a lot out in the area. It was actually a bit surprising for us when we were looking into it.
Right. Because all these vehicles look like minivans now. You can hardly tell the difference.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Thank you for your answer.
Okay.
And Councilman Baker, I can add also that I know Ford has laid off a couple of shifts because there are also shortages of the chips.
Right.
So that's another impact. So anyways, are there any other questions on the consent agenda items for today? Okay, hearing none then, I'm going to make a motion to approve today's consent agenda item as listed. Do I have a second?
Second. Oh, go ahead, Lenore. I'm sorry.
Seconded by Ms. Tucker. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Moving on to other business. I don't believe we have any other business. At this time, I'm going to ask if there's any public comment. At this time, please feel free to speak. Okay, I know Sharon, there is no public comment. So Sharon, I know you have an announcement to make, please.
Yes, I'd just like to announce that the next Board of Control meeting scheduled for May 31st is canceled in observance of Memorial Day holiday. And the next regular meeting will be held on Tuesday, June 1st.
Okay, thank you. Noted. At this time, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those favor say aye.
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 Opposed? We're adjourned. Once again, thank you. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.